Question 1. What is the role of police officers in the state of Pennsylvania? A. Enforcing federal laws only. B. Upholding state laws and regulations. C. Providing legal advice to citizens. D. Serving as mediators in civil disputes. Correct answer. B. Upholding state laws and regulations. Explanation. Police officers in Pennsylvania are responsible for upholding state laws and regulations, maintaining public order, preventing and investigating crimes, and ensuring the safety and security of citizens. They are authorized to enforce both state and local laws within their jurisdiction. This responsibility is derived from the state's legal framework, which grants law enforcement agencies the authority to enforce statutes enacted by the Pennsylvania legislature. It is crucial for officers to have a comprehensive understanding of Pennsylvania criminal law and procedure to effectively carry out their duties. Question 2. Which constitutional amendment protects citizens against unreasonable searches and seizures? A. First Amendment. B. Third Amendment. C. Fourth Amendment. D. Fifth Amendment. Correct answer. C. Fourth Amendment. Explanation. The Fourth Amendment to the United States Constitution protects citizens against unreasonable searches and seizures by law enforcement officers. This amendment is particularly relevant in Pennsylvania law enforcement, as it establishes the legal framework for search and seizure procedures conducted by police officers. In practice, this means that officers must have a warrant issued by a judge based on probable cause or meet certain exceptions to the warrant requirement to conduct a lawful search or seizure. Understanding the Fourth Amendment is essential for police officers to ensure that their actions comply with constitutional standards and to avoid violating individuals' rights. Question 3. Scenario. Mr. Rodriguez is pulled over for a traffic violation by Officer Smith in Pennsylvania. During the traffic stop, Officer Smith asks Mr. Rodriguez to consent to a search of his vehicle. Mr. Rodriguez hesitates but eventually agrees because he feels pressured by the presence of law enforcement. Which principle of law enforcement is violated in this scenario? A. Procedural justice. B. Probable cause. C. Community policing. D. Exigent circumstances. Correct answer. A. Procedural justice. Explanation. Procedural justice emphasizes fairness, transparency, and respect for individuals' rights in law enforcement interactions. In this scenario, Officer Smith's request for consent to search Mr. Rodriguez's vehicle may be perceived as coercive or intimidating, potentially undermining procedural justice principles. While officers may request consent to search without probable cause, they must ensure that the consent is voluntary and not obtained through coercion or duress. Failing to respect individuals' rights and autonomy during police encounters can erode trust between law enforcement and the community, hindering efforts to build positive relationships and engage in effective community policing practices. Therefore, it is essential for officers to uphold procedural justice principles to maintain public trust and legitimacy in their actions. Question 4. Which of the following is not a principle of community-oriented policing? A. Problem solving. B. Reactive response. C. Community engagement. D. Collaborative partnerships. Correct answer. B. Reactive response. Explanation. Community-oriented policing emphasizes proactive problem-solving and collaborative partnerships between law enforcement agencies and the communities they serve. Unlike traditional reactive approaches, which focus primarily on responding to incidents after they occur, community-oriented policing seeks to prevent crime and address underlying community concerns through proactive engagement and partnership building. By fostering trust and collaboration, law enforcement agencies can work together with community members to identify and address the root causes of crime and disorder, leading to safer and more resilient communities. Question 5. In Pennsylvania, which court handles the trial of most criminal cases? A. District Court. B. Supreme Court. C. Court of Common Pleas. D. Superior Court. Correct answer. C. Court of Common Pleas. Explanation. The Court of Common Pleas in Pennsylvania is the trial court with general jurisdiction over most criminal cases, as well as civil cases. It is the primary trial court where criminal prosecutions are conducted, including felony and misdemeanor cases. The Court of Common Pleas consists of judges who are elected by the citizens of Pennsylvania and are responsible for presiding over trials, issuing rulings on legal matters, and ensuring the fair administration of justice within their jurisdiction. Question 6. What is the primary purpose of de-escalation tactics in law enforcement? A. To escalate confrontations. B. To increase the use of force. C. To reduce the intensity of conflicts. D. To provoke aggressive behavior. Correct answer. C. To reduce the intensity of conflicts. Explanation. De-escalation tactics are techniques used by law enforcement officers to reduce the intensity of conflicts and minimize the need for physical force during interactions with individuals in crisis or high-stress situations. The primary goal of de-escalation is to diffuse tension, promote communication, and resolve conflicts peacefully while ensuring the safety of all parties involved. By employing de-escalation tactics, officers can help prevent situations from escalating into violence and maintain the trust and cooperation of the community. Question 7. Which of the following is an essential component of cultural competency in law enforcement? A. Ignoring cultural differences. B. Treating everyone the same. C. Understanding biases and stereotypes. D. Avoiding interaction with diverse communities. Correct answer. C. Understanding biases and stereotypes. Explanation. Cultural competency in law enforcement involves recognizing and understanding the cultural differences, values, and norms of diverse communities. It requires officers to acknowledge their own biases and stereotypes and to actively work towards overcoming them to provide equitable and respectful service to all individuals, regardless of their background. By fostering cultural competency, law enforcement agencies can build trust, improve communication, and strengthen relationships with the communities they serve, ultimately enhancing public safety and well-being. Question 8. What is the purpose of the use of force continuum in law enforcement? A. To maximize force options. B. To justify excessive force. C. To provide guidelines for the appropriate use of force. D. To eliminate the use of force entirely. Correct answer. C. To provide guidelines for the appropriate use of force. Explanation. The use of force continuum is a framework used by law enforcement agencies to provide guidelines for the appropriate application of force in various situations. It outlines a range of options and techniques that officers can use to respond to resistance or aggression, starting with low-level verbal commands and escalating to physical force only when necessary and justified. The purpose of the continuum is to promote the use of force as a last resort, minimize the risk of excessive force, and ensure that officers use force in a manner that is proportional to the threat posed by the situation. Question 9. During an active shooter situation, what should law enforcement officers prioritize? A. Evacuating bystanders. B. Negotiating with the shooter. C. Administering first aid. D. Neutralizing the threat. Correct answer. D. Neutralizing the threat. Explanation. In an active shooter situation, law enforcement officers must prioritize neutralizing the threat posed by the shooter to prevent further harm to individuals. This may involve engaging and confronting the shooter to stop their violent actions and protect innocent lives. While evacuating bystanders and administering first aid are important considerations, the immediate focus should be on stopping the active threat to prevent casualties and restore safety and order to the affected area. Question 10. What is the purpose of crisis negotiation techniques in law enforcement? A. To escalate volatile situations. B. To intimidate suspects. C. To establish communication and de-escalate conflicts. D. To provoke aggressive responses. Correct answer. C. To establish communication and de-escalate conflicts. Explanation. Crisis negotiation techniques are used by law enforcement officers to establish communication with individuals in crisis or high-stress situations and to de-escalate conflicts without the need for physical force. The primary goal of crisis negotiation is to establish rapport, gain the trust of the individual, and facilitate a peaceful resolution to the situation through dialogue and persuasion. By effectively employing negotiation tactics, officers can prevent situations from escalating into violence and help individuals in crisis access the support and resources they need. Question 11. In Pennsylvania, which entity is responsible for setting physical fitness standards for law enforcement officers? A. Local police departments. B. State legislature. C. Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency. D. Municipalities. Correct answer. A. Local police departments. Explanation. In Pennsylvania, physical fitness standards for law enforcement officers are typically set by individual police departments or law enforcement agencies rather than by a centralized state authority. These standards may vary slightly between departments but generally aim to ensure that officers possess the physical fitness necessary to perform their duties safely and effectively. Physical fitness requirements often include components such as strength, endurance, agility, and cardiovascular fitness, and may be assessed through standardized fitness tests conducted during the hiring process and periodically throughout an officer's career. Question 12. Which of the following is an example of a defensive tactic used by law enforcement officers? A. Verbal warning. B. Handcuffing a suspect. C. Issuing a citation. D. Conducting a search. Correct answer. B. Handcuffing a suspect. Explanation. Handcuffing a suspect is an example of a defensive tactic used by law enforcement officers to control and restrain individuals who pose a threat or are being placed under arrest. By immobilizing the suspect's hands behind their back with handcuffs, officers can prevent them from resisting arrest, fleeing the scene, or harming themselves or others. Handcuffing is a standard procedure in law enforcement and is typically employed when there is probable cause to believe that the individual has committed a crime or poses a risk to public safety. Question 13. What role does technology play in law enforcement in Pennsylvania? A. Eliminating the need for human intervention. B. Supplementing traditional policing methods. C. Replacing community engagement efforts. D. Hindering communication between agencies. Correct answer. B. Supplementing traditional policing methods. Explanation. Technology plays a crucial role in law enforcement in Pennsylvania by supplementing traditional policing methods and enhancing the efficiency and effectiveness of law enforcement operations. From surveillance systems and body cameras to digital evidence collection tools and crime analysis software, technology provides law enforcement officers with valuable resources for crime prevention, investigation, and public safety. By leveraging technology, agencies can improve data collection and analysis, enhance situational awareness, and respond more effectively to emerging threats and challenges in their communities. Question 14. Which of the following is an important consideration in conducting psychological evaluations for police candidates? A. Political affiliation. B. Educational background. C. Psychological suitability for police work. D. Marital status. Correct answer. C. Psychological suitability for police work. Explanation. Psychological evaluations for police candidates are conducted to assess their suitability for the unique demands and stressors of law enforcement work. These evaluations typically focus on factors such as emotional stability, decision-making ability, impulse control, integrity, and resilience to stress and trauma. The goal is to identify candidates who possess the psychological characteristics necessary to perform the duties of a police officer effectively and ethically while minimizing the risk of negative outcomes such as misconduct, burnout, or psychological harm. Marital status, political affiliation, and educational background are generally not considered relevant factors in psychological evaluations for police candidates. Question 15. What is the primary purpose of situational judgment and scenario-based assessments in law enforcement exams? A. To assess memorization of rules and regulations. B. To evaluate decision-making under pressure. C. To measure physical fitness levels. D. To test basic arithmetic skills. Correct answer. B. To evaluate decision-making under pressure. Explanation. Situational judgment and scenario-based assessments are designed to evaluate candidates' ability to make sound decisions and take appropriate actions in realistic and challenging situations commonly encountered in law enforcement work. These assessments present candidates with hypothetical scenarios or case studies involving ethical dilemmas, conflicts, or critical incidents and require them to analyze the situation, identify relevant information, consider alternative courses of action, and make reasoned decisions under pressure. By simulating real-world scenarios, these assessments provide a more accurate and reliable measure of candidates' readiness for the complex and dynamic nature of police work compared to traditional knowledge-based exams. Question 16. Which of the following statements accurately describes the exclusionary rule in Pennsylvania? A. It allows illegally obtained evidence to be used in court if it is deemed crucial to the case. B. It prohibits the use of evidence obtained through unconstitutional methods in court proceedings. C. It mandates that all evidence, regardless of how it was obtained, must be admissible in court. D. It applies only to certain types of criminal cases but not others. Correct answer. B. It prohibits the use of evidence obtained through unconstitutional methods in court proceedings. Explanation. The exclusionary rule, derived from the Fourth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and applied to the states through the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment, mandates that evidence obtained through unconstitutional methods such as illegal searches or seizures is inadmissible in court. This rule aims to deter law enforcement from engaging in unlawful conduct and to protect citizens' constitutional rights. In Pennsylvania, this rule is applied consistently with federal law, ensuring that evidence obtained in violation of a person's Fourth Amendment rights is not used against them in court. It's essential for law enforcement officers to understand and adhere to the exclusionary rule to maintain the integrity of criminal investigations and prosecutions. Question 17. In the context of community-oriented policing in Pennsylvania, which of the following best exemplifies the concept of problem-oriented policing? A. Conducting regular foot patrols in high-crime neighborhoods to deter criminal activity. B. Establishing partnerships with local businesses to sponsor community events and initiatives. C. Collaborating with residents and stakeholders to identify underlying issues contributing to crime and developing targeted strategies to address them. D. Implementing strict enforcement measures to crack down on minor offenses and maintain order. Correct answer. C. Collaborating with residents and stakeholders to identify underlying issues contributing to crime and developing targeted strategies to address them. Explanation. Problem-oriented policing emphasizes proactive and collaborative approaches to address the root causes of crime and disorder within communities. It involves analyzing specific problems within neighborhoods, identifying underlying factors contributing to those problems, and developing tailored solutions in partnership with residents, businesses, and other stakeholders. This approach aims to enhance community trust, address systemic issues, and achieve sustainable crime reduction outcomes. By engaging in problem-oriented policing, law enforcement agencies in Pennsylvania can foster stronger relationships with the communities they serve and implement more effective crime prevention strategies based on local needs and priorities. Question 18. Scenario. Mr. Rodriguez, a Pennsylvania police officer, responds to a domestic disturbance call involving a married couple. Upon arrival, he observes a heated argument between the spouses, but no physical violence has occurred. The husband, Mr. Garcia, appears agitated and refuses to cooperate with the officer's attempts to de-escalate the situation. Mr. Garcia demands that Officer Rodriguez leave the premises immediately. What should Officer Rodriguez do in this situation? A. Proceed to arrest Mr. Garcia for disorderly conduct due to his refusal to comply with law enforcement directives. B. Retreat from the scene and wait for backup before attempting to intervene further. C. Continue trying to engage Mr. Garcia in dialogue, emphasizing the importance of resolving the conflict peacefully. D. Contact the local magistrate to obtain a warrant for Mr. Garcia's arrest based on his disruptive behavior. Correct answer. C. Continue trying to engage Mr. Garcia in dialogue, emphasizing the importance of resolving the conflict peacefully. Explanation. In this scenario, Officer Rodriguez should prioritize de-escalation and conflict resolution techniques to defuse the situation without resorting to force or arrests, especially since no physical violence has occurred. By continuing to engage Mr. Garcia in dialogue, Officer Rodriguez can attempt to establish rapport, actively listen to his concerns, and work towards a peaceful resolution. It's essential for officers to remain patient, empathetic, and communicative in volatile situations involving domestic disputes, as escalating tensions can exacerbate the conflict and potentially endanger everyone involved. Additionally, Officer Rodriguez should consider calling for additional support or resources, such as a trained crisis intervention team or a domestic violence advocate, to assist in resolving the situation safely and effectively. Question 19. When assessing potential threats in a dynamic environment, which of the following factors should Pennsylvania police officers prioritize? A. Acting impulsively to neutralize perceived threats quickly. B. Relying solely on intuition and gut instincts to guide decision-making. C. Conducting thorough risk assessments based on situational factors and available information. D. Deferring judgment to senior officers without question or independent analysis. Correct answer. C. Conducting thorough risk assessments based on situational factors and available information. Explanation. Pennsylvania police officers must employ critical thinking skills and conduct comprehensive risk assessments when encountering potential threats. This involves carefully evaluating situational factors, such as the presence of weapons, the behavior of individuals involved, environmental conditions, and the level of urgency. Relying on intuition alone can lead to errors in judgment, while impulsive actions may escalate tensions or result in unintended consequences. By conducting thorough risk assessments, officers can make informed decisions that prioritize the safety of themselves, their colleagues, and the public while minimizing the use of force when possible. Question 20. In Pennsylvania, during a routine traffic stop, which of the following communication techniques is most effective for a police officer to use when interacting with a driver? A. Using aggressive language and tone to assert authority and control the situation. B. Maintaining a calm and respectful demeanor while clearly explaining the reason for the stop and any necessary instructions. C. Avoiding direct eye contact to prevent escalation of tension or confrontation. D. Issuing commands without providing any explanation or justification to the driver. Correct answer. B. Maintaining a calm and respectful demeanor while clearly explaining the reason for the stop and any necessary instructions. Explanation. Effective communication is essential for building rapport, ensuring cooperation, and de-escalating potential conflicts during law enforcement interactions. In Pennsylvania, police officers should prioritize maintaining a calm and respectful demeanor when conducting routine traffic stops. Clear and concise communication, coupled with explanations for the reason behind the stop and any required actions, helps to establish transparency and foster mutual understanding between the officer and the driver. This approach reduces anxiety, enhances compliance, and promotes a positive perception of law enforcement within the community. Question 21. Which of the following scenarios would constitute a lawful search under Pennsylvania law without requiring a warrant? A. A police officer conducting a search of a suspect's vehicle based solely on a hunch or intuition. B. A police officer searching a residence without consent or probable cause. C. A police officer conducting a search incident to a lawful arrest. D. A police officer searching a person's belongings without their knowledge while they are not present. Correct answer. C. A police officer conducting a search incident to a lawful arrest. Explanation. In Pennsylvania, a search conducted incident to a lawful arrest is an exception to the warrant requirement under certain circumstances. When a person is lawfully arrested, police officers are permitted to conduct a warrantless search of the arrestee's person and the area within their immediate control to ensure officer safety and prevent the destruction of evidence. This search must be contemporaneous with the arrest and limited in scope to areas where the arrestee could access weapons or evidence. It's essential for officers to understand the legal requirements and limitations surrounding warrantless searches to ensure compliance with constitutional principles and avoid potential suppression of evidence in criminal proceedings. Question 22. Which of the following best describes the role of body-worn cameras in law enforcement practices in Pennsylvania? A. Body-worn cameras are primarily used to surveil and monitor citizens without their knowledge. B. Body-worn cameras are optional tools that officers can choose to use at their discretion. C. Body-worn cameras are valuable tools for enhancing transparency, accountability, and documentation of law enforcement interactions. D. Body-worn cameras are prohibited by state law due to privacy concerns. Correct answer. C. Body-worn cameras are valuable tools for enhancing transparency, accountability, and documentation of law enforcement interactions. Explanation. Body-worn cameras have become increasingly prevalent in law enforcement agencies across Pennsylvania as tools for promoting transparency, accountability, and trust between police and the community. These cameras capture audio and video recordings of officer interactions with the public, providing valuable evidence for investigations, accountability purposes, and enhancing public trust. By documenting encounters from an officer's perspective, body-worn cameras can provide an unbiased record of events, protect officers from false accusations, and facilitate the review of police conduct. It's essential for officers to understand the proper use and protocols associated with body-worn cameras to maximize their effectiveness and adhere to legal and ethical standards. Question 23. During an active shooter situation in Pennsylvania, what should law enforcement officers prioritize as their primary objective? A. Engaging the shooter immediately to neutralize the threat. B. Evacuating civilians from the area to safety. C. Establishing a perimeter around the scene to contain the threat. D. Negotiating with the shooter to peacefully surrender. Correct answer. B. Evacuating civilians from the area to safety. Explanation. In an active shooter situation, the primary objective of law enforcement officers in Pennsylvania is to protect human life by evacuating civilians from the immediate danger zone to safety as quickly and efficiently as possible. This involves prioritizing the rescue and evacuation of potential victims while minimizing exposure to the threat. Engaging the shooter directly may be necessary as a last resort to stop the threat and save lives, but it should not be the initial priority. Establishing a perimeter and negotiating with the shooter may also be part of the response strategy, but the immediate focus should be on removing civilians from harm's way and preventing further casualties. Question 24. Which of the following strategies is most effective for Pennsylvania police officers to demonstrate cultural competency and respect for diverse communities? A. Making assumptions about individuals based on stereotypes or generalizations. B. Treating all community members with equal levels of suspicion and scrutiny. C. Actively listening to community concerns and perspectives with an open mind. D. Avoiding interactions with communities that are perceived as different or unfamiliar. Correct answer. C. actively listening to community concerns and perspectives with an open mind. Explanation. Cultural competency requires police officers in Pennsylvania to recognize, understand, and respect the diverse backgrounds, experiences, and perspectives of the communities they serve. Actively listening to community members with an open mind fosters trust, promotes effective communication, and enhances the quality of police-community relationships. By valuing and incorporating diverse viewpoints into their decision-making processes, officers can better address community needs, mitigate cultural biases, and tailor their approach to policing in a manner that is respectful, equitable, and inclusive. This approach helps build bridges between law enforcement and diverse communities, leading to improved cooperation, collaboration, and public safety outcomes. Question 25. Which of the following statements accurately reflects the importance of physical fitness for law enforcement officers in Pennsylvania? A. Physical fitness is a secondary consideration and does not significantly impact an officer's job performance. B. Maintaining physical fitness is essential for ensuring officer safety, effectively responding to emergencies, and performing job duties proficiently. C. Physical fitness requirements for law enforcement officers are optional and vary depending on individual preferences. D. Law enforcement agencies in Pennsylvania do not prioritize physical fitness and do not provide resources for officer wellness programs. Correct answer. B. Maintaining physical fitness is essential for ensuring officer safety, effectively responding to emergencies, and performing job duties proficiently. Explanation. Physical fitness is a fundamental component of law enforcement readiness and job performance in Pennsylvania. Officers must possess the physical capabilities necessary to respond to a wide range of situations, including emergencies, physical altercations, and pursuit scenarios. Maintaining optimal physical fitness levels enhances an officer's ability to perform essential job functions effectively, minimize the risk of injury, and protect themselves and others in high-stress situations. Additionally, physical fitness requirements are typically mandated by law enforcement agencies to ensure that officers meet established standards for physical readiness and job performance. Regular physical training and wellness initiatives are integral components of a comprehensive approach to officer safety and well-being. Question 26. In Pennsylvania, what is the primary purpose of a preliminary hearing in the criminal justice process? A. To determine the guilt or innocence of the defendant. B. To provide an opportunity for plea negotiations between the prosecution and defense. C. To establish probable cause for the defendant's arrest and bind the case over for trial. D. To sentence the defendant for the alleged crime. Correct answer. C. To establish probable cause for the defendant's arrest and bind the case over for trial. Explanation. In Pennsylvania, a preliminary hearing serves as a procedural safeguard to ensure that there is sufficient evidence to justify the defendant's continued detention and prosecution. During the preliminary hearing, the prosecution presents evidence to establish probable cause that the defendant committed the alleged offense. The judge then determines whether there is enough evidence for the case to proceed to trial in a higher court. The primary purpose of the preliminary hearing is not to determine guilt or innocence but rather to assess the strength of the prosecution's case and safeguard the defendant's rights against unfounded accusations or unlawful detention. Question 27. Which of the following accurately describes the historical evolution of law enforcement in Pennsylvania? A. Pennsylvania was the first state to establish a centralized police force in the United States. B. Law enforcement in Pennsylvania has remained largely unchanged since colonial times. C. The Pennsylvania State Police was established in the late 19th century to address rising crime rates and labor disputes. D. Law enforcement responsibilities in Pennsylvania were historically decentralized, with local sheriffs and constables enforcing laws in individual jurisdictions. Correct answer. D. Law enforcement responsibilities in Pennsylvania were historically decentralized, with local sheriffs and constables enforcing laws in individual jurisdictions. Explanation. Historically, Law enforcement in Pennsylvania, as in many other states, was decentralized, with local sheriffs and constables responsible for enforcing laws within their respective jurisdictions. This decentralized system reflected the colonial-era tradition of local governance and community-based policing. It wasn't until the late 19th century that Pennsylvania established the Pennsylvania State Police in response to increasing crime rates and the need for a centralized law enforcement agency to address statewide issues. Understanding the historical evolution of law enforcement helps contextualize the current structure and functions of policing in Pennsylvania. Question 28. Why are psychological evaluations an essential component of the selection process for prospective police officers in Pennsylvania? A. To assess physical fitness levels and overall health status. B. To identify candidates with prior criminal history or substance abuse issues. C. To evaluate candidates' psychological suitability and emotional resilience for the demands of law enforcement work. D. To determine candidates' proficiency in firearms handling and marksmanship. Correct answer. C. To evaluate candidates' psychological suitability and emotional resilience for the demands of law enforcement work. Explanation. Psychological evaluations play a crucial role in assessing the suitability of candidates for law enforcement positions in Pennsylvania. These evaluations help identify individuals who possess the psychological traits and emotional resilience necessary to handle the unique stressors and challenges of police work effectively. Factors such as decision-making under pressure, interpersonal skills, stress management, and ethical judgment are evaluated to ensure that candidates can perform their duties professionally and ethically while safeguarding their own well-being and that of others. By screening out candidates who may be prone to excessive use of force, misconduct, or psychological distress, these evaluations contribute to maintaining the integrity and effectiveness of law enforcement agencies. Question 29. In the context of community-oriented policing in Pennsylvania, which of the following strategies is most effective for building positive relationships with diverse communities? A. Implementing aggressive enforcement measures to crack down on minor offenses. B. Adopting a one-size-fits-all approach to policing to ensure consistency across different communities. C. Engaging in proactive outreach efforts and collaborative problem-solving with community members. D. Focusing exclusively on reactive responses to calls for service without engaging in proactive crime prevention efforts. Correct answer. C. Engaging in proactive outreach efforts and collaborative problem-solving with community members. Explanation. Community-oriented policing emphasizes the importance of building trust, fostering collaboration, and addressing community concerns through proactive engagement and problem-solving. By actively involving community members in the decision-making process and working collaboratively to identify and address local issues, law enforcement agencies in Pennsylvania can establish positive relationships based on mutual respect and shared responsibility for public safety. This approach promotes transparency, accountability, and inclusivity, leading to stronger community partnerships, enhanced crime prevention efforts, and improved overall quality of life for residents. Proactive outreach efforts demonstrate a commitment to serving the diverse needs of the community and help bridge gaps between law enforcement and marginalized or underserved populations. Question 30. Under Pennsylvania law, what is the significance of the Miranda rights in the context of police interactions with suspects? A. Miranda rights are optional advisements that police officers may choose to provide to suspects at their discretion. B. Miranda rights inform suspects of their right to legal representation during police questioning. C. Failure to administer Miranda rights may result in the automatic dismissal of criminal charges against a suspect. D. Miranda rights inform suspects of their constitutional rights, including the right to remain silent and the right to an attorney, before custodial interrogation. Correct answer. D. Miranda rights inform suspects of their constitutional rights, including the right to remain silent and the right to an attorney, before custodial interrogation. Explanation. Miranda rights, established by the U.S. Supreme Court in the landmark case Miranda v. Arizona, 1966, are crucial safeguards to protect individuals' Fifth Amendment rights against self-incrimination during custodial interrogations. In Pennsylvania, as in all states, law enforcement officers are required to advise suspects of their Miranda rights before conducting any custodial interrogation. These rights include the right to remain silent and the right to legal representation. Failure to provide Miranda warnings can lead to the suppression of any statements made by the suspect during interrogation and may jeopardize the admissibility of evidence obtained as a result of the interrogation. It's essential for Pennsylvania police officers to understand and adhere to Miranda requirements to ensure the integrity of criminal investigations and safeguard suspects' constitutional rights.